And joining us virtually is our forecaster from the Met Office, Miss Cassie Johnson. So we'll turn you over now to Miss Cassie Johnson. She has a report on the weather.
Recording in progress.
Good night to you, Press Sec, and good night to everyone that's listening. The staff at the Met Office continues to monitor.
Cassie, you may proceed.
Are you hearing me, Nila? Can you hear me?
Go on, Cassie. You may proceed with the weather.
Good night to the listeners and the viewers. The Met Office continues to monitor this tropical wave that is approaching. Okay, so there is a tropical wave towards the east of the Windward Islands. As you can see on the screen, it is approaching Grenada. It is moving towards the west at 15 to 20 knots, and it has a 10% chance of cyclone formation within the next 48 hours and a 20% chance of formation within the next 7 days. Now, both these chances are low for development, and environmental conditions are not too conducive for further development. So we are expecting this to cross us as a tropical wave. Now, if you look at your screen, you can see those, I would say, pretty colors indicating some strong convective activities, thunderstorms, which will bring with it some gusty winds and rainfall. We already experienced from the beginning of the weekend a tropical wave into Hurricane Beryl yesterday, and we know that we got a lot of rain from that system, and in expecting this system to cross us, we will get some more rain. So the forecast for Wednesday, as we are expecting this wave to start affecting us, is partly cloudy to cloudy and windy, with light to moderate showers and a low chance of lightning and thunder. Winds are expected to come from the east-northeast to east-southeast at 14 to 24 miles per hour, with some gusts at times. Seas are expected to be moderate to rough, with waves of 6 to 8 feet in easterly swells. Now the Met Office has advisories out. There is a low chance of flooding and landslides. As I said, we already received a lot of water from Beryl and that tropical wave that passed earlier in the weekend. A marine advisory and a high surf advisory also remains in effect as this wave approaches. Now, with this approaching wave, it is expected that the most intense rainfall and gusty winds will affect the islands towards the north of Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Martinique, right? However, we are not going to be unaffected. We are still in the path of some rainfall and some gusty winds, so please be cautious. And as it is passing closer to the north, we are expecting our brothers and sisters on the sister isles to feel more of the effects of this tropical wave as it crosses the Windward Islands. So please remain cautious and heed the warnings. There is still a low chance of flooding and landslides, and marine and high surf advisory remains in effect for the Tri-Island states. Back to you, Presec.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for that update on the weather. And again, she's reminding us to remain cautious. We still have something coming, some rain coming, so you still need to be very cautious. All right, at this time, we want to turn over to the Minister for Education. He has an update on school and the closure of school for this week. Minister.
Thank you very much, Presec. Good evening, good night, Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and everyone following this broadcast. I first want to echo gratitude to God for His goodness and His mercy to Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Notwithstanding what we have been faced with, we have been spared what could have been a lot worse, and so I register my thanks to God for His keeping mercy on all of us. We empathize with those who have had tragedies, the families of the few persons who we heard have lost lives. We empathize with all of you, and we pray that God gives you the grace and the strength that you need to cope and to manage amidst the disaster, and to have personal loss, it's probably an additional tragedy for you, but we do empathize with you, and we pray that God gives you all of the strength you need. In relation to education, we advise that schools will remain closed for students for the rest of the term. Schools were ordinarily going to be closed officially at the ending of this week, but given the circumstances, we have moved in the interest of safety of all concerned to have schools remain closed for students to the end of the term. We are expecting that teachers will report as far as is possible to schools, because we know that teachers will have end of term activities to complete. It might have to do with report cards, it might have to do with just packing away stuff for the end of term. So for teachers, we anticipate that you will report to work since the official state of emergency has been recalled. We know that your graduation ceremonies will be affected. Some of the schools, your graduation ceremonies will be affected since your dates may have been planned, but we advise that you are free to reschedule for some later time when it's safer to do so. So be guided accordingly, but we anticipate that you won't be able to have those activities within the rest of this week. We are also aware that you will need to present students with their report cards, and so you are free to arrange with your various groups of students the days when the students themselves or their parents can come to the schools to collect their report cards. It does not have to be this week. It could be sometime next week when we are in a safer place to do so. So be advised that we anticipate that you will make those report cards available, but probably not within the next day or two. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this causes, because we know quite a lot of preparation goes into many of these activities, but we do believe it's necessary to preserve the safety and well-being of our traveling population. There are still many fallen trees. There are some students who live in homes that have lost their roofs, and in the case of the Sister Isle, many of the school buildings themselves have been affected. And so, all being considered, we still think that it's in the best interest of our nation's children and population at whole to close school at this point for the rest of the term. We continue to advise that you be very mindful and be safe in all that you do, since there will be still threats and risk factors somewhere in the public domain. So we advise all to be very cautious. Be guided accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister David Andrew, for that. And at this time, we want to hear from Dr. Terence Walters, coordinator at NaDMA. Dr. Terence Walters visited Carriacou and PT Martinique earlier today, and we want to hear just some updates from him and some updates on the shelter and relief efforts for Carriacou and PT Martinique.
All right, thank you very much, Press Secretary, and good night to everyone. Today, July 2nd, the team visited Carriacou and PT Martinique to conduct assessments. The team included NaDMA, Royal Grenadier Police Force, the Ministry of Health, NAWASA, Grand Lake Digicel, Flow, and the initial assessments were conducted, and work will continue. Our assessments will continue, and work will continue toward restoring services. Now, from the look of things in Carriacou, it's very devastating, and the conditions, all right, the conditions on the ground are what we have seen. It's that approximately 98% of structures in Carriacou and PT Martinique either damaged or destroyed. All right, so that's, again, let me just repeat that, approximately 98% of structures in Carriacou and PT Martinique either damaged or destroyed. The roof of the Princess Royal Hospital in Carriacou, it was damaged, and the Chief Medical Officer was on hand today to conduct the assessment, and he will work towards ensuring that the facility is restored quickly and can be ready for use by the population in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. There are fallen trees, fallen utility poles and lines that are down. There's no electricity or water, no mobile services. The main request we had from Carriacou and Petit Martinique, food, water, tarpaulin, cots, and what we will do is that we will update the needs list. We will update the needs list and share it with the general population and the wider public, so that in the event you want to make any contribution towards the relief efforts in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, you will be guided by the needs list. And I want to repeat this: we will update and publish the needs list for the population and the wider public. In the event that you want to make any contribution toward the relief effort, we ask you to please be guided by the needs list. And I want to further state that sometimes we go outside of the needs list and provide items that are not necessarily needed. But we have done the assessment, we have visited the islands, we have spoken to the people, we have spoken to the district committees, including the minister and the permanent secretary. We have updated the needs list, and we will share it, and we ask that you please be guided by the needs list if you want to contribute to the relief efforts for Carriacou and Petit Martinique. We have deployed 2 officers to Carriacou and Petit Martinique in the persons of Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. He's a former National Disaster Coordinator, and Ms. Berylyn Clarkson from the Statistics Department. She's trained in damage assessment and other disaster management areas. We have deployed these 2 officers to Carriacou, and they will provide services at the Emergency Operations Center for both Carriacou and Petit Martinique. NaDMA, that's the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, will deploy 2 officers to Carriacou to provide operational support to both Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and they have indicated that those 2 officers can be available as of tomorrow. The islands will continue to be provided with relief, and that will be a coordinated effort. We want to ensure that the relief effort is coordinated, it is orderly, and that we provide to Carriacou and Petit Martinique the things that they need, and the things that they request, and the things that they ask us for, and not things that we just believe that they need. But again, the needs list will be shared, and we ask you to be guided by that. So NaDMA will continue also with the shelters. There are some shelters that still remain open, and we will continue to provide services to those who need those services, and hope that we can ask or get the shelteries back to their normal lives as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Walters, for those updates. And now we want to hear from Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, and also he's the Minister for Disaster Management, Infrastructure, Public Utilities, and National Security. Prime Minister. It's been a long day.
Good afternoon. Yes, it has been a long couple of days. Pleasant good night to the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, our citizens in the diaspora, our well-wishers and supporters regionally and internationally. I want to continue to express my gratitude for the tremendous expressions of support, of empathy, for the actual actions of persons who have already galvanized relief efforts, financing, logistical support in helping Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique throughout this difficult time. On behalf of the people of Grenada, I express our profound appreciation for the solidarity shown to us and for standing with us throughout this difficult period. I want to start off by indicating that at 10 a.m. this morning, the Honorable Attorney General Claudia Joseph would have indicated to the public that the state of emergency, which had previously been declared, had come to an end except for Carriacou and PT Martinique. So I want to repeat, the state of emergency for the mainland Grenada came to an end at 10 a.m. today, except for Carriacou and PT Martinique, which remains in effect. It therefore means that all establishments, if they did not open today, we expect them to be open tomorrow. It means work resumes fully tomorrow, as was indicated by the Minister for Education. Students' holidays essentially have commenced, but teachers are expected to report to work until the official period for holiday is to commence, which would be on Friday. So students' holidays have commenced, but teachers and other administrators and support staff for schools, you're expected to return to work. We do appreciate that some schools are still being used as shelters, and so we expect that there would have to be some navigation there, but obviously the administrative offices and so on are not being used as shelters within the school, and so there should be no disruption to principals and teachers and staff being able to carry out their functions. We want to thank the principals and the teachers for the support during this period and for facilitating the use of schools as shelters. We still have, as I said, citizens in shelters. NaDMA is continuing to provide support to them, and relief supplies are likely to continue in the coming days in instances where persons are not able to return to their homes, either because they have no homes or because the homes have been damaged. We will continue to provide the necessary support for citizens in these circumstances until such time as we are able to find more permanent solutions to the challenge of housing caused by the destruction wrought by Hurricane Beryl. We are aware that St. Patrick, St. Andrew, St. Mark, and St. John suffered much more damage than St. George. St. David suffered some damage as well, but not significant when compared to St. Patrick, for example. It is clear that agriculture has taken quite a battering. It is clear that many persons have lost their roofs. It is clear in some instances many people have lost their entire homes. But the destruction in Grenada, even in St. Patrick, which is extensive, is of almost no significance compared to the total destruction that Hurricane Beryl has brought to the islands of Carriacou and PT Martinique. I had the displeasure of flying over Carriacou today, and I want to take the opportunity to thank the Prime Minister of St. Lucia for facilitating the use of a helicopter from St. Lucia, which granted me access for the first time to Carriacou. That helicopter is still in Grenada, and tomorrow cabinet ministers will get the opportunity themselves to view firsthand the destruction caused by Hurricane Beryl in Carriacou and PT Martinique. Having seen it myself, there's really nothing that can prepare you to see this level of destruction. It is almost Armageddon-like, almost total damage or destruction of all buildings, whether they be public buildings, homes, or other private facilities. Complete devastation and destruction of agriculture. Complete and total destruction of the natural environment. There is literally no vegetation left anywhere on the island of Carriacou. The mangroves are totally destroyed. The boats and the marinas significantly damaged. There is almost complete destruction of the electrical grid system in Carriacou. The entire communication system is completely destroyed. As of this moment, communication is still a major problem. Although I visited Carriacou and spent about 2.5 hours there, I was not able to meet or even speak with the Honorable Tevin Andrews, MP for Carriacou, because of the challenges faced with communication. That continues to be a major challenge to us, and we are doing everything to try and get communication, at least some form of communication, back up as soon as possible. Notwithstanding this very dire picture, things have begun to move. This morning, a number of volunteers, showing the true Grenadian spirit, volunteered their time and their resources by providing their boats and fishing vessels with the help of volunteers and numerous relief supplies, including water, non-perishable goods, tarpaulins, etc., were loaded on boats and taken to Carriacou and taken to Petit Martinique for the first time to begin the relief effort to our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. I want to thank the many volunteers who volunteered their time, the many persons who dropped off supplies, and the boatmen who took their boats not requesting any payment, who used their own gasoline and diesel and their time to take these boats with the supplies to Carriacou and Petit Martinique in support of our brothers and sisters there. I want to take the opportunity to thank them. I expect many of them are going to continue to do so. And for the many volunteers who continue to show up to assist in this process, again, we say a heartfelt thank you. SVG Air, 2 flights left from Grenada to Carriacou today, and we expect that SVGA will continue to provide support to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique in the next several coming days. The Osprey and the barge escaped the storm by going to Trinidad for safekeeping. With the kind compliments of the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago, relief supplies are also going to be placed on the Osprey, and we expect that as of tonight they would journey from Trinidad up to Grenada and Carriacou to bring more relief to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. There is a CARICOM-wide regional effort to support our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Petit Martinique and in the northern parts of Grenada who need relief. I want to take the opportunity to again to publicly thank the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for his tremendous efforts in helping the people of Grenada. Today, a relief plane, military plane from Guyana dropped relief supplies, and there is more to come on the weekend. So again, President Ali, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your empathy, and thank you for your generosity in supporting the people of Grenada. All of our CARICOM members have mobilized and are providing support through NaDMA or on a bilateral basis, including many of the governments within the OECS, Dominica, St. Lucia, I've already mentioned, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua. Our other partners, the United States, Venezuela, China, United Kingdom, have all indicated their support and have already begun to mobilize to assist us in this process. I want to take the opportunity again to publicly thank all of them for the tremendous support that they have been providing. It is going to be a mammoth task to rebuild Carriacou and Petit Martinique, but we are committed to doing so, and I want to say to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique that we are with you. We will continue to support you. We will continue to ensure that you can rise again from the ashes. The Ministry of Social and Community Development is standing by to provide psychosocial support to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Obviously, because of the almost total destruction of housing on the island, we have to make necessary accommodations to house persons who are going up to provide support, and we will be working on these in the several days ahead. The Cabinet of Grenada held an emergency meeting at 7 p.m. tonight, and we have taken a number of decisions coming out of that emergency meeting. The first is that we will launch a national cleanup campaign on mainland Grenada starting this Saturday. We are asking all citizens to come out, particularly in the northern parishes, and to ensure that we clean up the destruction, the damage, the debris, the fallen trees, the fallen shrubs, and other debris that has arisen as a result of the destruction brought by the hurricane. The Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation and the Ministry of Infrastructure, together with volunteer groups, will lead this initiative, and so you should expect to hear more details on this on commencing tomorrow into Thursday and Friday. Grenada belongs to us. It is for us to ensure that we take the lead in beginning to clean up our environment and in beginning to restore normalcy to our various villages and constituencies. We know it is not something that will happen overnight, but we certainly believe that in the next, commencing on the weekend, that in the next week and a half to 2 weeks, we should be able to have a complete cleanup. The situation in Carriacou is significantly more challenging, and so we will have to establish a task force with our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and in Grenada to just address the cleanup situation in Carriacou alone. Enormous debris, enormous garbage, enormous wastage has arisen as a result of the hurricane, and we need to ensure that we have a detailed plan to address this situation. The Cabinet will also establish a task force to do a detailed assessment of the loss and damage that Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique has suffered in the areas of agriculture, fishing, housing, public buildings, private buildings, and public infrastructure, and the environment as a result of Hurricane Beryl. I want to stress that the environment has taken a severe battering as a result of this hurricane, not just the built infrastructure. We need to make sure that we record accurately the loss, the damage, and that we are able to quantify this because it has significant implications for the economy of Grenada, for the government's fiscal situation, and for some of our contractual obligations, liabilities, as well as benefits. As you are aware, Grenada does have a catastrophic risk insurance policy, so we need to be able to determine whether we have reached the threshold to claim under this policy. It has implications for our fiscal obligations as well as our debt liabilities. In fact, the Minister of Finance has already written to some of our multilateral partners to indicate that this catastrophic event has happened and to trigger our debt suspension clause in some of these agreements, given the fact that we will need significant resources just to clean up Grenada. The cleanup alone will run into the tens of millions of dollars. So we are also going to create a task force to treat with the impact of this significant catastrophic event on the current 2024 budget, the economy, and the government's fiscal situation. And we are going to create a task force to treat with coordinating relief efforts in conjunction with NaDMA as it relates to our foreign partners. As you are aware, we have already begun to receive significant expressions of interest and support, and we want to make sure that we have a coordinated and centralized system for treating with this situation. The ministry which I chair, together with NaDMA, will take the lead on this specific issue, and more details will be provided on this. As part of this, the Accountant General's Office will create a separate bank account, the details of which will be provided tomorrow, so that anyone wishing to donate towards the cleanup and rebuilding as well as relief efforts which have arisen as a result of this terrible hurricane will be able to do so. We want to be able to create a separate account for this so that we can first of all accurately record the contributions and donations that have been made, and so that we can account to it specifically in relation to the relief and rebuilding efforts. So more details on the account will be provided tomorrow. We also want to address the fact that this storm, this hurricane, is a direct result of the climate crisis that Grenada, the Caribbean, and other small island developing states, Foreign Affairs, in conjunction with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Resilience, and Renewable Energy, will form a task force to address this issue and to bring it to the international community's attention, to recognize that we demand and deserve climate justice. We are no longer prepared to accept that it is okay for us to constantly suffer significant, clearly demonstrated loss and damage arising from climatic events and be expected to rebuild, be expected to borrow, to rebuild year after year, while the countries that are responsible for creating the situation and exacerbating the situation sit idly by with platitudes and tokenism. Grenada's economy, Grenada's environment, both physically built and natural, has taken an enormous hit from this hurricane. It has put the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique light years behind, and they are required to pull themselves up by the bootstrap on their own. This is not right, it is not fair, it is not just, and so we will create a task force to champion this issue, to find the appropriate partners to continue championing this issue with, both within CARICOM, within the small island developing states space, and within the larger international community, including the United Nations. So I want to emphasize that while we are eternally grateful for all of the support that we receive from our partners, that justice must also be done. And Grenada is but one example of several Caribbean countries, year in, year out, which suffers this fate with no significant financial resources being made available to us to rebuild after we continue to suffer this type of enormous loss and damage. So I want to emphasize, we are only heading into day 2. After this terrible event, it will require a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of support, and a lot of unity. And I call upon all of us as Grenadians to unite, to remain focused, to remain empathetic to each other as we climb our way, brick by brick, galvanize by galvanize, window by window, out of this awful ordeal. I express my profound gratitude again for all of the support that we have received and will continue to receive, and I pledge that we will remain united as we take on this task together. So thank you very much again for joining us, notwithstanding the late hour. We've always committed to keep you updated. We will continue to do so as and when the need arises, especially if there's any new information. I want to re-emphasize, this is just the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season. It is just the beginning. And as you can see, Hurricane Beryl is barreling down on another Caribbean island. And we empathize and we hope that through prayers, the storm does not pass over another Caribbean island. Because we know what we've experienced in Grenada, we know what our brothers and sisters have experienced in Carriacou, and we do not wish it on anyone. So keep our brothers and sisters in our prayers. Let us hope they do not have to experience what we've just experienced. And we will continue to rally around our brothers and sisters in the region on this issue of climate change and climate justice. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell. I want to say thank you so much for your hard work and your dedication to serving the people of Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. Your hard work is truly exemplary, sir, and I thank you for being the humble servant of this tri-island state. I know we have 2 people who have raised their hands online. Mr. Turner, I see your hand, and you may proceed if you have a question or a comment. People who have raised their hands.
Yes, good evening, Prime Minister, and good evening to everyone else. Whitfield Turner from I-95.5 Trinidad and Tobago. I have 3 questions. I don't know if you'd like me to ask all at once or you'll take them one at a time. You can guide me.
You can ask all 3.
Very well. So my first question, as it relates to relief efforts, what's the status of the port at Carriacou? Will relief items be able to be shipped direct to Carriacou, or will they have to go through St. George's first? That's the first question. The second question, in terms of NGOs who might wish to come to Grenada to assist in the relief efforts, would they have to register, and what's the process for that? And my final question, given the issue of funding to fund the relief efforts, do you foresee the need for return to Parliament for supplemental appropriation for the current fiscal year?
All right, thank you for the questions. I will take the last question first. Yes, we certainly expect that we will have to go back to Parliament for a supplementary budget. In fact, we think this crisis is going to, in a sense, completely upend our budget for 2024. As I said, just the cleanup efforts alone is going to run in the tens of millions of dollars. When I say the destruction in Carriacou is unimaginable, I mean just that. The island has been destroyed. We have to rebuild from the ground up. The airport is destroyed. The runway is there, but the entire building is destroyed. The port at Tyrrell Bay is badly damaged. The traditional port at Hillsborough, that is the port where supplies are coming through. But even prior to that, that port was already earmarked for a complete redoing. So in a sense, Beryl has probably accelerated the fact that we're going to have to build a new port. But it is functional, and it is the port that we are using to receive relief efforts. But I want to point out that if a boat wants to come to do relief effort, it has to check in with our port authorities at the Port of St. George first, and we will make, even if the final destination is Carriacou or Petit Martinique, because obviously we still need to maintain port security, we still need to maintain quarantine and health issues, and we still need to maintain national security. So if a boat is coming for relief efforts, it has to check in at Port St. George first, and then it can proceed to Carriacou or Petit Martinique if that's the final destination. If an NGO wants to do relief work in Grenada, yes, it's welcome. However, it will have to register with NaDMA, and it will have to register with the Ministry for National Disaster Coordination, as well as it may be required to register, depending on the nature of the NGO, as a non-profit organization under our Companies Act in Grenada.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. So we're going to take the three journalists who have raised their hands. Rena, you may proceed.
Good night to everyone. I have a couple questions. I'll just ask 3. Prime Minister, understanding that you spoke about Carriacou, we know that most of the damages are across there, and you also spoke about St. Andrews, St. Patrick, St. Mark. What is being talked, or what has been said, is that did you take into consideration when removing the state of emergency and the curfew that these areas are still severely affected? I'm speaking about St. Mark's and Andrew. No current, no water. Persons will be called out to work. The road might be passable at some level, but when heading back home, the whole place is dark. What is going to be happening with these individuals if they have to go to work? Is the police officers going to be out patrolling? While our country is fairly safe, we do have bad apples. What are concerns? These are some of the concerns that's been aired presently in the area. Secondly, we need some relief. What is the relief as it relates to water and stuff like that? Yes, we were told to have our storage and stuff like that. It's already 3 days for some people. As it relates to water was removed since Sunday up until today. So the supply is getting low. Yes, the focus is on Carriacou, but the other areas in the mainland is affected. We still have persons who are in the shelters in some places, or maybe staying at neighbor's house, whatever the case may be, and they are yet to finish with their personal issue in dealing with their homes, but yet for all they may be called to work and stuff like that. Thirdly, has opposition reached out to the present administration in assisting or in helping in the relief in any way whatsoever?
All right. In terms of the third question, I have not had any interaction with the opposition in relation to the relief effort. I'm aware, however, that in the constituency of St. George Northwest, that the leader of His Majesty's opposition, and I believe Senator Franklin, would have taken part in the distribution of relief supplies to persons in that constituency. I can't account for any other constituency in terms of any opposition engagement. And I'm saying this guardedly, I believe the MP for the Tongue of St. George, the Honorable Peter David, may have also done so, but I'm simply repeating what has been said to me. So there has been no official communication between myself and the opposition, nor am I aware from a government and opposition perspective on the relief efforts. That's the first. Second, on the question of the removal of the state of emergency in relation to the other parishes in Grenada which are impacted, yes, we factored that in, and in fact it is because we wish to accelerate the return to normalcy in those parishes that we removed the state of emergency. First, we appreciate that for persons whose homes are damaged, that we want to be able to give them the opportunity to in fact start working on it and start ensuring that the hardware stores, etc., can supply, that the Ministry of Housing Community Development can be in a position to start providing assistance in those circumstances. So whether it's the relief efforts via tarpaulins or lumber or other resources from our hardware stores, we need to be able to get it to them. And if people are not going to work, we simply can't. We appreciate that the water would have been interrupted, but NOASA's latest update, as shared, indicated that in many instances the water supply has been restored. There's a very long list that they have supplied, and I can certainly say in St. George it's restored, St. David it's largely restored, St. Andrew there are still some restrictions where the water is off, and some parts of St. Patrick water is restored. For example, Peggy's Whim in St. Patrick, the water supply is restored. Mount Rural, the water supply is restored. Concord, the water supply is restored. Mount Pleasant, the water supply is restored. It is still off in Cloger and Mount Felix, that it's in St. John. In Tufton Hall, Fountain and Union, it is still off. In Guapo and Blaze, it is restored. So I'm just giving examples. It's not a case where it's a complete shut-off still. In many instances, the water is or has been restored. Even if we have a state of emergency, not working, while it does allow persons the opportunity to assess their homes, it doesn't allow you the opportunity to fix the home, because if you can't leave, then you can't get materials, and materials can't get to you. So we have to be able to find the right balance where persons can obviously attend to their personal affairs. I expect our employers, whether they be the government or private sector, will also be cooperative in this time to make sure we can give our employees sufficient time to address the challenges posed by the damage or destruction to their homes, but we also have to get on with it. And sometimes the easiest way to cope and deal with the stress is to have some routine return to your life. So the routine of going to work, the routine of being responsible, is also a coping mechanism for many persons. So yes, we recognize it is still a challenging situation, but we also want to ensure that we motivate our citizens, that we say to them we are resilient, we are capable of bouncing back, and we want to encourage that spirit. I should also point out that in many instances, relief supplies commenced from the time people went into shelters, and we are continuing to do so. So when we say the emphasis has been on Carriacou and Petit Martinique, we've talked about it, but the first relief supplies only went to Carriacou and Petit Martinique this morning. So they've been completely without relief supplies at all. Whereas in St. Patrick, once the road is passable, you can get to St. Andrew, you can get to St. David, you can get to St. George. In the case of Carriacou, there's nowhere to go. In the case of Petit Martinique, there was nowhere to go. In fact, the Coast Guard could not even go up this morning because the swells were deemed too dangerous for it to go. So the emphasis has been in us wanting to find out the state of things in Carriacou because we lost communication. And now that we found out, it is clear the destruction is, as I said, unimaginable. But we are continuing to provide all of the relief support for St. Patrick, St. John, St. Andrew, and we expect that a detailed assessment of the loss and damage will in fact commence in St. Andrew, St. Patrick, and St. John, St. Mark first, and then eventually come down to St. David and St. George. I hope I answered all of the questions.
I believe you did. Thank you, Rena. We have 2 more journalists online, and then we'll close for this evening. Callistra Faria, you may proceed with your question. Callistra? All right, we can move to...
Good evening.
Okay, good evening.
What arrangements are being made for the immediate shelter of the people? I went to Carriacou today. I saw what was happening. Even the shelters are damaged, so it means that there are people who may not have a place that's habitable. What are the immediate arrangements that are being made for sheltering the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique who may be left to the elements because of the conditions of their home?
Well, I think the immediate arrangements are for those whose homes are partially standing and where tarpaulin can provide some temporary relief. We shipped as much as I think 200 tarpaulins commencing this morning. We will continue to ship tarpaulins. That's one. 2, we will assess larger buildings like schools and so on which are partially damaged to ascertain the viability of it remaining as shelters. 3, we are immediately assessing, as I had indicated, I think in a previous briefing, the homes or apartments built by the government and people of China with a view to having them made available to persons who would need access to homes. The update I had from PS Javan Williams this afternoon was that there may be some water damage to some of these, so they're assessing them. But certainly from the air, they look structurally sound with minimal roof damage, and so we would certainly be using this as well as an opportunity to give people the chance to have temporary housing.
Thank you, Callistra, and thank you, Prime Minister, for your response. Mikey Hutchinson, you're online. We'll take your question.
I'm sorry. I have another question.
Okay.
Minister of Education, the new school year is 8 weeks away from starting. Schools have been destroyed. Can you tell me how you intend to deal with the situation? The schools are being used as shelters. They might be in prolonged use. You have 8 weeks to get those schools up and running again. Any special measures that will be deployed?
So thank you very much for that question. Indeed, at this point, we will not be able to furnish you with all of the detailed plans, but what I can tell you, we are happy that we have the privilege to be able to advance all of the repairs within the 8-week break that we are embarking on. So we are in probably as fortunate a position, notwithstanding the situation we're in, to have this period before us when we can actually accelerate all school repairs. And so we are going to do our utmost to bring as many, if not all of the schools back into the shape to be able to accommodate. We have already engaged some other possibilities, but they're still embryonic. We may need to make some alternative arrangements for housing some students. We've started exploring some of those options, but we are not in a place to share those details yet. It might mean housing them in other facilities, even if we have to do some island sharing. All of those are possibilities that we have started brainstorming about, should we not be able to have all of the structures physically ready. So we are engaging, and once we have firmed up those possibilities, we'll keep the population duly informed, and hopefully well ahead of time. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Minister.
Prime Minister, are you considering at all moving any of the people from Carriacou or Petit Martinique onto the mainland temporarily?
It's a consideration. We have to get the detailed assessment. So I want to repeat this because I'm not so sure if it's coming through. The destruction of the communication system, the power system, the transport system in Carriacou means we have very little data as to the actual state of the population of Carriacou and Petit Martinique at this point in time. As I indicated, I visited Carriacou, I spent 2.5 hours, and I was not able to even meet with the minister, nor speak with him. So we are still very much in a deep hole, and so we are not in a position to make definitive solutions, whether it's on education, healthcare, or even housing, because of the state of destruction that has occurred. So we have to take this, in a sense, step by step. For example, we have to be able to secure the airport and actually put a roof, even if it's temporary, over the airport, so that we can accommodate more flights, so that we can accommodate more relief efforts, and so that we can accommodate. I'll give an example. If we wanted to bring 10 people to Carriacou to help with the cleanup efforts, there's no place for them to stay. Not only is there no place for them to stay, there's no electricity, there's no water. We have to worry about sanitation, hygiene. So that's what I mean when we are starting from the scratch. So we have to understand this is how far back this hurricane has put the island of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So yes, if it means evacuating some people and bringing them in Grenada or bringing them on other islands, we will certainly be prepared to consider and do so. But that is all part of the assessment that we are now only beginning to make, because we first have to account for the people in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. We have to ascertain whether there are other fatalities that we may not know about, whether there are other injuries that we may not know about. Actually be able to ensure that we know and that we account for everyone. We then have to consult with them as to their wishes. You have to appreciate that the people, Kayaks are special. Many of them love their homelands. Moving is not something that they may want to entertain without some cajoling or persuading. So again, we don't want to impose any solution on them that they may not be agreeable to. But it's very, very early stages, and we will have to use the next several days to look at all of the various options as to how we can begin the process of just cleaning up. Is going to be a mammoth task, as I said.
All right, thank you, Kalishra. We'll move now to Mikey Hutchinson. You may proceed, and we will close for this evening.
Neela, Prime Minister, and the other panelists, good night to you. Actually, in the Prime Minister's explanation of the last few questions, answered many of the concerns or questions that I would have had, so I would not have him repeat some of the answers that he had. I lowered my hand, but I guess as much you did not see that, so I'm good. Only to say, if you give me a moment, to say congratulations to the Prime Minister and his team for being so hands-on in the recovery efforts, and of course in explaining to the nation exactly what is going on. I think you guys are doing an exceptional job, and on behalf of Grenadans, I have to say thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mikey. At this time, I'd like to allow for any final closing comments from Prime Minister or Minister for Education or Dr. Walters. If you have anything to close, we'll close for this evening so you can get some rest.
No, I just want to say thank you to the journalists for joining us at this late of an hour, and thank you to the citizens for staying up and taking this journey with us. I think it demonstrates our commitment to each other and to supporting our brothers and sisters in their time of need. Grenada and Carriacou and Petit Martinique are still beautiful places, and we have an opportunity in the case of Carriacou and Petit Martinique and the northern part to plan our development in a more resilient, more sustainable and more environmentally friendly way, notwithstanding that the destruction is often not as a result of our own doing. And so I think we will require all of us as citizens to begin to truly embrace topics such as climate change and make sure that we all become advocates for telling the world that it has to do a better job of ensuring that it can protect places like Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And we would like to remind you that we are still in a state of emergency for Petite Martinique and Carriacou. Grenada, you have been lifted. The state of emergency has been lifted for Grenada. If you wish to donate relief items, you can bring them to the NaDMA headquarters, and it is located in Monjalou, St. George. Monjalou, NaDMA headquarters for all relief efforts, relief supplies. I would like to put on record our profound gratitude once again to all the volunteers and donors who showed up this morning to load the boats to Carriacou, and to everyone who donated and who will continue to lend support to Grenada. It has been an extremely long 72 hours, and while many of us suffered losses, we have a lot to give God thanks for. So let us continue to work together to rebuild Grenada. It will have to be a united effort, and we call on all of Grenada, both home and in the diaspora, to work together to rebuild Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. So from all of us here at the NaDMA headquarters, I want to say thank you for joining us and have a great night.